sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome to Rabbi on the Sidelines. This is Erez Sherman at Sinai Temple in Los Angeles, and this week we are joined by comedians who love sports and who have a Jewish message of faith. The Sklar Brothers, postmodern stand-up comedy duo. This is a very long bio, but it's
no, please don't. That's all you need to say. Postmodern comedy duo. Yes.
Sitting on a bima. You know, usually on this bima over here, I'm actually one who tells the jokes. I'm a bit intimidated in terms of.
Oh, don't be. We'll riff together. All of us. We'll help each other.
Perfect. So we'll cut that, but you haven't seen on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Entourage, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, your amazing podcast and show Cheap Seats, and Dumb People Town.
Yes.
Sports, comedy, and faith.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are those related?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we say that sports is it's the greatest magic trick of all, because it's so low stakes sports. It's just like, it's not a family member going through cancer. It's the lowest stakes thing. And yet if your team loses, it ruins your weekend. It can ruin, you get very upset. It raises your blood pressure and all that stuff in ways that it doesn't matter, but it matters.
So Lakers Grizzlies, where's our blood pressure right now?
So we're
Clippers fans.
Jay's a Clippers fan, so his blood pressure is through the roof. I'm a little less. I was just explaining to my wife yesterday and my friend how much I am enjoying the NBA playoffs because I don't have a team. I can actually just enjoy the playoffs. I can watch them all and say, ooh, this is a great game. I love this. Even,
when you love a team so much, I think Bill Self, who was the coach of Kansas still the coach.
He went through some health issues.
Famously said, winning is a relief, losing is a disaster.
That doesn't sound fun.
There's no joy in that.
Take that to faith. Repeat
Okay.
that. Winning is
a relief. Losing is a disaster.
I would say break the fast is a relief. Yom Kippur is a disaster.
No,
I'm just kidding.
No, but you. So you look at that quote, and if you want to apply it to faith, you say to yourself, "Where is the joy in that?" There is no joy. I feel bad for Bill Self. I'm like, geez, I really do feel like you've eliminated any capacity for joy in there. And so I think sometimes when people they aren't connected to their Judaism, they don't understand how to find the joy in it and go to that place instead of going to a place of either obligation or only coming to it when you need it to help you get through a disaster.
And it's so true that so many people walk in this building for a disaster or joy,
right?
But not necessarily in the middle of the everyday.
Right. And the everyday, you can find those everyday things can help you look forward to just small things on a daily basis, just small little corrections or,
connections.
Yeah.
Corrections and connections. So you think about what is, you played sports, we played sports, and then we also do comedy. Part of why you become successful is you show up. Mm-hmm. So, showing up for people. It's what I tell my kids all the time. I'm like, you want friends for life? You show up for those people. Yep. In the good times, in the bad times, in the mundane in-between times. Show up. Why? Because some guy who you're friends with, needs you, or you have a personal joke. You have a personal thing that builds and builds and builds and builds. Same with sports. What happens? You show up, you work on your jump shot on a Tuesday when no one's looking. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, that starts to build. You show up again on Wednesday, it gets better. Thursday, even better. Saturday, Sunday, not Saturday because it's Shabbat. Sunday when the game is.
Saturday in the afternoon.
You can
Havdalah and hoops. Come on.
That's right.
Havdalah and hoops. But so in that moment, you've built on all these sort of what were like mundane, normal daily moments. You've built a muscle. You've built a connection. You've built a deeper connection that I think even goes deeper than being in these big dramatic moments only.
So we're going to go from mundane to sacred. Comedy, how would you define it, and who is that audience when you come up with the joke, when you see something in society? And what is that balance between, especially in today's more sensitive world, the balance between a joke and someone taking offense to these words?
So I think the first audience should be you. And in our case, it's us. If it makes us laugh, if this is something that we find funny between the two of us, that's the first hurdle to climb and to leap over. Then you bring it to people, and we're pretty open to the way an audience receives it. If audiences are receiving it in a good way over and over, we know that that is a idea that is resonating with them and it makes sense, and we dig deeper into it as far as it can go. If we get pushback, we may try it again. And if it doesn't, because every audience is different and it's a difficult thing, and sometimes you go up at the wrong time. We say comedy is like summiting Mount Everest. All the conditions can be perfect, and there's a little cloud way off in the distance. That's usually a bachelorette party that comes in and they're really loud. A little cloud off in the distance, and then they come in and just, you ruin it, and there's just
die at any time.
Bodies strewn across the landscape.
So I saw YouTube of you guys doing a little Charles Barkley golf impersonation, and actually Ernie Johnson, and Ernie Johnson's a good friend of Rabbi on the sidelines here.
Nice.
I'm like, do I send that to him or not?
I mean, I love Ernie. I mean, I love that Shaq and Barkley. I've been watching so much of the NBA on TNT because it's the playoffs right now. Ernie, that's terrible, Ernie. Ernie, tell Shaq to tell Canada that's terrible.
Hey, Kobe.
He's like sitting right next to Canada. Ernie, tell Canada, tell Shaq that's terrible.
And then he'll say like some wild thing like James Harden is a Hasidic Jew. I don't think
he's not.
Charles,
Look at the beard, Ernie. I don't look at the beard.
He's
Ernie.
got a Ford Aerostar, Ernie. What does that mean? He's got 11 kids. What does that mean? So, I mean, yes, we love sending those things up. And for us, like, honestly, doing impressions of people or exaggerations of people is a flattering way to say that you're iconic and I know you so well, I can do a version of you that is expanded and extended. There's love in it. There's love in all the comedy that we do. And I think when you're being mean. Unfortunately, we're flawed human beings. We've all been mean to people. I've been mean to people. I regret it, usually right afterwards. But when you're being mean and when you're not. Now, the way it's interpreted, because the other half of your question is that we're living in a sensitive time, and sometimes people interpret things in a certain way. I think intention is a lot of it. It's how you intend something to come across. You may hurt someone's feelings unintentionally. It wasn't your intention to hurt somebody. And sometimes people are hurt by that. And we take each time someone comes up to us and says, that's offensive.
That's offensive. And we'll literally talk to them and say, why is that offensive to you? Okay, I hear you. We may disagree with you. I'm sorry that rubbed you the wrong way. It wasn't our intention for that to happen. We're going to continue doing this because we believe it doesn't go that way, but we appreciate your feedback. I think
if we get multiple people coming back saying a specific thing is offensive or it seems out of step with the rest of what we're doing, then we'll consider changing it. And happy to do so, because we do realize we're not just doing this for ourselves. We're the first hurdle. If we like it, that's the first hurdle. The audience is the next hurdle. And so they're one and the same. They're part of the same long race that you run. But I do think comedy, we believe that comedy should there should be a social contract when you enter a comedy room that is like, hey, if you're easily offended, then maybe you shouldn't be here. Like,
the same thing for our sermons, right?
Yeah. If you're coming into, let's say someone's walking into the synagogue with ready for a fight, ready to be angry at you no matter what you say, arms folded, or coming in saying, I am so offended by the Jewish religion right now, anything that comes out of this person's mouth, I'm going to take offense to. If that's the way people walk into a comedy club, then they're going to find things wrong with what everybody's saying. Because part of what we do in comedy, and I'm going to assume part of what your mission is to push the edges, push the envelope, try to evoke thought and emotion and feelings. And you can't do that by just being, vanilla in the middle.
It's actually true. We call it sacred theater. And the biggest part of that sermon is the hook, which is the comedy aspect. There are many times I go online and say, what is that joke that can enter into the Parsha. Otherwise, these people are sleeping before we even start.
Yeah. And some people would say, how dare you joke about Torah? How dare you put a joke in? That is sacred text. And you're like, but that's who I am, and I'm going to bring myself to it. And I would look at all the commentary of all time, Rashi, Ramban. How funny is it that there's a Ramban and a Ramban?
Still confuses
There's
me.
a street obviously there's a famous street called Melrose in Los Angeles, for those who are not in LA. Melrose Place, we all know about it. There's a friend of ours who's a very funny writer, Eric Friedman, who we have done a lot of work with. He was like out by the water, and I want to say Huntington Beach. There's a street there called Melrose. I'm like, what did you?
It's the
Run out of names that you're just like, we're going to now just adjust this. It's
Tosfot.
Yeah, I'm saying Ramban and Ramban. But the idea that all these people made comments on the Torah, and sometimes contradictory, and they were hot takes on the Torah, but there's all the commentary, and there it all is. That's all we're doing as comedians, is commentating on life. What if it's a personal experience to us? We have a whole joke in our act right now about and it's a pretty serious subject about kidnapping kids, and our take on it is, who would want, I'm trying to look at it from the perspective of a kidnapper. We've raised children.
It's hard.
You want that in your life?
Why would you take that on?
When my kids are too much, I dream about being a drifter. You know what I mean?
A loner.
A loner. You now want to bring a kid into that
I love
scenario?
that joke that you say, how many kids do you have? Too many. That
Too
was
many.
My wife was like, what are you laughing about? Like, you have to watch this.
I mean, thank you, and that is true. We've been thinking a lot about what it means to be parents, and I think we're in a sort of a crisis in the world right now, where people are actively choosing not to have kids because they're looking at it and saying it's hard, it's expensive. It's what world are we bringing them into? There's a lot of good questions there, but hard and expensive, you're like, I'm on the fence. It seems kind of hard. It's having a kid. It's not like driving across town to have brunch with someone. You can't just opt out because you're like, that seems difficult. You know what? It is difficult. It seems difficult. It's harder than you even think. It seems expensive. It's more expensive than you even think. But if you're on the fence and you think that you might want to do it, I think we need to do it. The future of the human race depends on us. So it's such an we're at an interesting moment where people are choosing self-care over childcare. There's choosing I need to take care of myself in this moment. Great, you do, but you can take care of yourself through taking care of somebody else.
And I would argue that the lessons that I've learned as a parent through my kids, through my own behavior, through my kids, have been lessons I would have never. So you get in an argument with a friend, serious argument. You're like, I'll talk to you in 3 weeks, maybe. See you later. You get in an argument with your kid, and they're a kid, you still have to lay down with that kid to help put him or her to sleep at night if you're a good parent and you're doing that stuff. So you have to get on the other side of an argument. That's a place where most people never find themselves.
Besides in the Talmud.
Besides the Talmud. So you get on the other side of that argument, and you're sitting there going, well, why did I feel the way I felt? Why did I dig my heels in that way? And you know what? Maybe I came in a little too hot on this thing, and here's why I was feeling this way. I felt like you weren't listening to me. I felt like you were disrespecting me, and you just weren't even hearing anything I was saying. And really, I shouldn't have gone that far, because this is what I really meant to say. And then you're down into the real. To me, that's a lesson to be learned, that you carry that into other areas of your life. And just, I don't know. I would, if I never had kids, I probably would never experience that. And it's like, what a great kid. There are so many.
By the way, there are people who cannot have kids. There are people who
try and can't.
There are people who are like, hey, my mental health situation is one that I don't feel capable of, or I don't even want to go down that road. We're not talking about those people. Where there are plenty of people who don't want to have kids for a myriad reasons, and go for it. We say you're right to not make that choice. But we're saying there's a feeling right now. I'm not judging a generation of people, but there's a moment right now in this world where if people don't like their jobs, they're like, I kind of don't love my job, I'm going to quit. If people don't like the school, the college they're going to, I'm like, I'll just transfer. Yeah. No penalty. I'll transfer and go to this other way. If I'm number 3 on the depth chart, it hurts. Talk about sports. Talk about like, I'm a backup and I think I should be a starter, so I'm just going to leave this school. Instead of, I'm going to stay in this program, I'm going to work my butt off, I'm going to try super hard, or I see that this person ahead of me in the depth chart is graduating next year. That means I get a year 2 years to show everyone in the world how dominant I can be. People are like, I want it now. I want to start as a
And even
freshman.
coaches, the loyalty.
Coaches, they gave me more money. I'm going over here.
One win in the NCAA tournament, and you're going from Fairleigh Dickinson to Seton Hall. It's insane.
I never understood. There's a player at Michigan right now. That's where we went to college. So we're huge Michigan fans. Hunter Dickinson.
Yeah, I know. Syracuse is on his list.
Syracuse on his list.
And he'd be great at Syracuse.
He'd be great. Kentucky's on his list. Kansas. I think Kansas is going to have the biggest bag to drop on this guy, and he's probably going to wind up going there. He came back for his junior year. His draft stock status, in my opinion, he projects in the NBA to be like a Steven Adams type guy, or at best, Brook Lopez, because he can shoot.
I would say at best, Evi Zubat.
Okay, so his Zubats so in some way he could be a tall guy who's not that athletic, but can provide some rim protection, and so he's not that athletic.
Maybe like a 12-8 guy.
Right, that's it. In the league, but he could be that. He's not a first-round pick. He's maybe not even a second-round pick. He might have spent time in the G League. So with NIL, name, image, and likeness, you can make enough money to stay at college and play there. So he plays 3 years at Michigan, and if he plays his fourth and final year and gets his degree there, guess what? He may not make as much money as he would make right now at Kansas, but you then get your jersey raised to the rafters and in a ceremony, you become the highest scoring center in the history of University of Michigan basketball. If you ever wanted to come back and be an announcer, you could be an announcer for University of Michigan basketball. Maybe you want to be a coach. You could be a big man coach on the sideline. The doors of your future and opportunity are open to you in a way. And so I'm just wondering if no one has explained that to this person. It's just, again, speaking to what Jason said, which is like, this is the way I feel right now. And this is what I need right now. And sometimes there's a longer play. I feel like Judaism, there's a longer play in Judaism for all of it.
And so let's go to the sports world, because we talked comedy, and then off the air you talked about how you got into the sports world through one of your mentors, one of your counselors, one of your Hebrew school teachers, and a recent guest on this wonderful show.
Amazing.
Gary Belsky of ESPN.
Gary Belsky was our camp counselor when we were in sixth grade or fifth grade. At Camp Saracen in St. Louis, which was at a synagogue called Tiferes Israel Congregation, or TIC.
Great
name
place
for
to go
a
to
summer
camp. TIC.
We're going to Camp Lyme's disease. So we went to TIC. He was our counselor. Funny, interesting. Immediately we looked up to him. Immediately we connected with him, even though we were 10 and he was 20. And we just felt like a kinship with this guy. Then he was our Hebrew school teacher in seventh grade, which is the year of our bar mitzvah, very pivotal year in our lives.
He lit a candle at our bar mitzvah.
And then he moved to...
They still do that these days.
Do they still do that? My son did not do that, but I love that.
East Coast, it's still happening.
I love the bad poem before every candle. When we were young, we used to play, but now you live so far away. Bubby and Sadie, come up and light the third candle.
So Gary was our teacher, and then we stayed in touch with him. When we moved to New York, he had been living in New York City. He was writing for...
When we went to Israel in college, he was there, and our parents were there, and we met in Jerusalem and had lunch with him in Israel. So our paths crossed when we were in college. Our paths crossed, so many times. We got to New York and we looked him up. And
Gary had a crush on our mom. I mean, it was beautiful. And then when we went to New York, there was a vibe of, we knew a lot of young people, comedy people. And then once you're in your 20s and Gary's like in the early 30s, like we are all can share friends and mutual friends. And we became, in some ways, like, he still felt like a mentor to us, but now we were sort of on more equal footing. And we socially connected with a bunch of people who he became friends with. And then he started working for ESPN, the magazine, and really doing some amazing work there. And ESPN, the magazine, was taking off.
We started doing some writing. He hired us to do writing for ESPN, the magazine. That started our working relationship with him. And we brought him some other funny people that he used as well. And then we moved out to Los Angeles. It was after 9/11 and everything, and work had been kind of down for a while. It was a weird time. We hadn't worked for several months. We
were back in New York for a wedding or a bar mitzvah? Wedding.
Bart and Rebecca's wedding.
And that's right. Near 4th of July weekend, right? Summer.
No, I think it was in August. It was in like April.
Okay. Anyway, we're there. We hadn't worked for a while. We're sitting down to have breakfast with Gary, because whenever we go to New York, we meet with Gary. And we said, what do you got going on? What's happening in your life? And he said, well, my partner Neil and I, his partner at work, Neil Fine, they were co-editors of the magazine, brilliant writer as well. They had just pitched ESPN a bunch of TV show ideas, ESPN Classic. And they said they really like this one idea of us watching the old weird footage, and they don't know really what the format's going to be. And he's like, we just need to find, a couple hosts to host the show who have a good chemistry with each other and good personality. And then he didn't say anything. I think he said, like, can you pass the ketchup? And we're like, Gary, what do you don't want us to do this? Why would you not? He's like, I didn't know you'd want to do a show on ESPN Classic. And we were like, we haven't worked in 8 months. We'll do a show anywhere. And ESPN Classic could be the perfect place because they don't have a lot of comedy. So we can create the kind of comedy show we want. We can let it grow. We can build an audience. And so
it's exactly what it did.
He is like, I'll submit you guys. And he submitted us and our stand-up. And they kind of were intrigued by us. We came to New York and did a huge, in the ESPN, the magazine offices in front of all these ESPN executives, pitched all these ideas, and we said, this is what the show needs to be. And they were like, you're our guys. And we got
you from the Cheap Seats.
That was Cheap Seats.
Cheap Seats.
The Cheap Seats. View from the Cheap Seats is our podcast, but Cheap Seats really put us on the map with a lot of people, with a lot of sports fans, comedy fans,
athletes.
We hear from all kinds of people. Like, who was it? Glendon Rush or who was
Glendon Rush? So Ryan Dempster or Glendon Rush or Ryan Dempster said, like, and we're huge Cardinals fans. Grew up as like deep St. Louis Cardinals.
Hated the Cubs.
Hated them. They were our bitter rivals. And again, this sports. When I say hate, I mean in a sports way. I don't know these people. I don't actually hate them. But like, you don't love that team. You really. It's Yankees, Red Sox. It's Dodgers, Giants. We don't like the Cubs. That's just the way it goes. And then someone told us that like the Kerry Wood, Mark Pryor, those great Cubs teams around 2003, 2004, 2005.
They had a TiVo.
That's how old it was, in the clubhouse. And the only thing on the TiVo was episodes of Cheap Seats. They were the biggest fans ever. We're like,
when they weren't watching when they weren't pitching, they were in the clubhouse watching you guys.
So the message is you don't know who you're going to meet at summer camp, right?
Don't know who you're going to be at summer camp. If you hate people, don't hate them until you get to know them. They could be fans of yours. And it really was, Gary Belsky's influence on our lives has been so profound, and we're still close.
Still in touch. He came to both my kids' bat mitzvahs.
And my son's bar mitzvah.
And that's how he ended up at Sinai Temple, through the Sklar Brothers.
But you know what? Inside that, and Gary is the best example of it, goes back to something I was saying before. Gary shows up for people.
Yep.
And Gary shows, and in doing so, always something good comes out of that. Always.
Whatever he tells us to do, we listen to him because he's like a modern day righteous person. He's a saintly person that you follow him and you feel like his moral compass is pointed in the right direction. So he emails us and says, you should do this show because this show is great. I think you'd really have a good time. You enjoy it. We don't even question it. We're like, absolutely, we're going to have a great time. And we are having a great time and he's right.
He was right.
But there are ways to influence people. And I feel like Gary has done that for a number of people.
Yes.
And you want to be that person in your life.
Yes.
Whether you're a rabbi, you're the editor-in-chief of ESPN, the magazine.
Whether you're comedians helping younger comedians.
You want to be that person for people because then you kind of, if you want to speak to it in terms of sports, that's your coaching tree. We're part of Gary's coaching tree.
Right.
And we go out and then there are people underneath us who then go out and sort of learn from us.
I'm assuming there are like rabbinical trees.
We do. With Rabbi David Wolpe here, there are people who have worked for Rabbi Wolpe who are now around the country in Sinai Temple isms from those bimas as well. Actually, it's funny. An ESPN reporter just contacted me for a different article, and we were sort of having a discussion, and then I said, do you know Gary Belsky? He goes, he was my boss. And the conversation completely changed to having this trust and respect of each other.
Of course.
So we actually have a clip that's something that you mentioned earlier that you had on a podcast about really the importance of sports and the heaviness and seriousness, but also at the same time, how light, and as my dad used to tell me, don't worry, son, it's just a game. So we're going to play this clip about sports and comedy.
Take it like sports is literally the lowest stakes thing in your life. I mean, I was talking to you, my wife is just going through breast cancer. You know, we've been through that for the last year and a half. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
That's real life.
Yeah.
If Alabama loses, like the Crimson Tide fans like lose their brains and you're like, wait, that's the lowest stakes thing in your life, but it's managed to trick you into thinking it is the highest stakes thing in your life.
That to us is hilarious.
It's so funny. It's so funny, right? You just you trick someone in their Yankees fans who are like ready to jump off the Verrazano Bridge right now because they're having a bad September.
So that brings up some own trauma in my life because only once did Syracuse win that championship in 2003 with Carmelo, and the amount of tears that every season ended with, 7th grade listening to the radio when they lose to West Virginia and this and that. But at the same time, it is real. And at the same time, all of those traumatic experience led to really deep relationships of why I'm doing what I'm doing today in a rabbinic field through the sports world.
It's great. And, you did win. You did actually win. You have that moment with Carmelo Anthony where you can say, we won. We won it all. As St. Louis Blues hockey's fans, we had
50 years.
We had great teams all throughout our youth. Brett Hull, Adam Oates, those teams were, Hull scored 50 goals a season. I remember Gary Unger and Wayne Babbage and Bernie Federko. Those are great teams that made the playoffs a lot. We enjoyed a lot of success, but never could get up over and win the Stanley Cup. When we won the Stanley Cup in 2019, and they didn't even make the playoffs this year, but I don't care because we won the cup in 2019.
But a byproduct. So that's sort of like, it's not fake because it's real, but it's not a deeply real and impactful thing in your life necessarily. If you really break it down, if you stack it up to the healthier children, the healthier spouse, the your livelihood and whatnot, it's not the same. But the real life byproduct of a championship run of a team, we got in touch with old friends from St. Louis who we started connecting with, who we are now friends with, who we visit.
So here, if you want to show like how one time, and I feel like Judaism is all about this too. Tzedakah is all about this, like the small thing you do that then is the ripple in the pond that goes further and further, and what are the effects of that down the line? So we get in touch with our friend Dave Newman, who played on the baseball team with us, was a year older than us, moved to Denver right after college. So we never saw him. We'd come home. He went to Mizzou. I think he went to Mizzou, right? He went to Mizzou, and then he moved to Denver. We'd come home because he wasn't in our class. We'd never see him at any reunions or anything. He didn't live in St. Louis, so we didn't see him in a group of people that we'd come back to St. Louis from New York when we lived there, or from Los Angeles, so we wouldn't see him. And there was really no way to get in touch with him for years and years. We completely lost touch, but he's someone we loved. We joked around with. He was a baseball guy. He was amazing. He was just a friend and really cool. So we completely don't get in touch with him. He has been watching all of our stuff throughout the years. Biggest fan, is such a supporter and everything.
Listens to the sports podcast.
Listens to everything. He finally gets in touch with us. I don't even know how, but
I think he got our number from somebody.
Either got our number from somebody or got us.
Maybe from Gary.
Maybe. Or he found us on Facebook Messenger or something, whatever. We got in touch and we started texting him during the St. Louis Blues run. Right. And we are texting him, and it's like we never from high school till 2019. We graduated in 1990. He graduated in 89. So from 89 to 2019,
30 years.
Okay, 30 years run right there. It was as if we had just picked it right back up again. So he lives in Sacramento now, and we've become we text about the Cardinals all the time, baseball Cardinals, and we just text about life. So we go up to do a show. It shows for Sketchfest up in San Francisco. He comes to San Francisco. Now, I've gone to Burning Man 2 years, and that's a whole other set of friends and really interesting people, and an experience that opened my eyes up in semi-religious way in terms of it's not religion, but there is a lot of it espouses a lot of the same things of being kind to people and
spirituality.
There's a deeply spiritual connection to people, right? Community, all that stuff. So I have met friends who are deeply close to me, who I've just met since 2018. Specifically one friend, her name's Eva Kim, and she's unbelievable. And she and my wife and my kids, she's just a wonderful person, like a godmother to our kids. She and Dave have become friends because they met through this thing, and they have a friendship and relationship that is separate. They text each other separate from me, and she has opened up to him an entire world of friends and stuff. It's like amazing that started with this thing that then ripples into something else and beyond. It's just incredible.
Actually, I mean, the mission teaches us that each human being is a world in itself, and if you can open up another world. I mean, it says if you save one life, it says if you save a world. I'll paraphrase that to if you open up another human being's heart, it's also opening up another world to us as well.
That's great.
So you mentioned the St. Louis Cardinals. We have another clip of a show that you've appeared on many times. That's the Rich Eisen Show, and how you're not afraid to bring this word Jew and Judaism into the public sphere of national radio and TV. The Rich Eisen Show.
They are on fire right now, huh?
I went to the game the other night, and I was there, and we were down 1-0. Flaherty is pitching great. He's actually throwing a no-hitter. Then Jock Peterson hits one out, and I thought, Jew. Congratulations.
But to throw that in there.
Throw it out there.
Every once in a while we get one.
We get one.
Yeah, I know. We had Jeff Schwartz here in studio.
Nice.
And we had him sign the book of Great Jews and Sports book that we have
get
here.
them to sign it.
That's amazing. We should sign it too, although we're kind of tangential.
really in sports.
You hosted a sports show back in the day.
We did. We had cheap seats.
Cheap
a lot of people don't know this. Terrell Owens, Jewish. Just kidding. I'm not.
That would have been great.
But
as a matter of fact, that's why he didn't go to the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
He was complaining about the portions.
It was on Shabbat too.
He could not do it.
He could not do
He
it.
does not get enshrined on Shabbos.
Terrell Owens does not get enshrined on Shabbos. How did you decide to bring that to the Rich Eisen Show, where it's not a majority Jewish audience? Obviously, Rich is Jewish, and he's saying Shabbos in the Rich Eisen Show. That's not a normal thing, but it's also so beautiful to be normalized.
It's part of us. It's part of our souls. Like, we're truthful to who we are when we perform. We talk about being Jews on stage. And we also, if there's an opportunity to bring it up in the world, I feel like we will take that opportunity. And
comedy is specific, like when Amari Stoudemire became converted to Judaism, that was fantastic. I mean, I always remember our uncle, our dad's brother, lives down in Orange County, and the synagogue that he kind of helped found down in Orange County, Rod Carew was a member of that synagogue. I mean,
through his wife, I believe.
Through his wife, but I don't even know if he even fully converted. But there was always Rod Carew. It sounds like Jew, Carew.
We've got Rod Carew,
and so I mean, we were always fascinated with Jews who were doing it on that level in sports, and so you gotta put it out there.
I mean, you talk about Ryan Terrell. I sat and watched a whole G League game just to watch him come in the game, and that's not my team. The Motor City. What is he on?
Motor City Cruise. Now selling kosher food in Detroit.
So he's on the Motor City Cruise. He's wearing a yarmulke. He steps into the game, and my son plays basketball, and he, in some ways, just his hair reminds me of my own kid. And he's he's 6'7" and can hit outside shots. And he comes into the game. He's not playing a ton, but second he gets into the game, ball moves around a little bit, hits him in the corner. He puts up a three. I'm sitting on my couch by myself. He hits the three, and I stand up and start cheering in my living room alone. Why? Because I'm like, I feel a kinship and
he
a connection.
hit that for us.
He hit it for all of us. And I'm like, this is my guy. I'm so proud of him. I'm so excited. I've watched interviews with him, and I'm like, he's a great representative of Jews and Judaism, and we need someone like that. He's tough. For me, it was like this catharsis.
But I put that in the same category. I don't know if you know, there's a brand new story that just happened. There's a kid, I'm going to forget his name. I'm going to get his name wrong, and it's a bummer. I want to get this right. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, who for 13 years was in the minor leagues.
Just saw it this morning.
Just saw it this morning. And he had his first major league at bat.
Yeah.
And I sat and watched all of the videos within the article. So I saw a friend of ours sent this, that this is the greatest thing ever. Him getting called up. I mean, I'm tearing up now thinking about this kid and what he went through, and just 13 years. I mean, he's a grown man. He's not a kid anymore, but his parents, listening to them, and they interviewed them. I mean, it's the greatest thing in the world. He struck out, and his second pitch, he got a strike for a pitch clock violation, which is the worst in the world. I'm like, can we get rid of that? But he didn't get into the box within 8 seconds. But he's first pitch, he cranked it foul. But I mean, he really put a good swing on it. But it's those types of stories That's the other thing that sports allows us are those types of stories. If you, and his message is you keep working at it, someday maybe it'll happen for you. That was inspirational to us as we continue to work on projects to try and get them through.
Yeah, I mean, actually last summer Ryan was here, but it wasn't just him talking to Jewish kids. We had him along with Enes Kanter, and in our gyms upstairs, we had 100 Jewish, Christian, and Muslim children playing basketball together. Enes had just come from Israel, explaining how actually working with Tamir Goodman, and Tamir connected Enes and Sinai Temple. And it was an unbelievable moment that people, I'm just going to go to a basketball clinic. Nobody got off their seats because they understood that this ball was bringing people together in the way that you're doing through comedy and through sports with your faith journey, which I think is the most beautiful trifecta that we have right here as well.
Thank you. I mean, I remember we were just in Phoenix doing shows, and our host was a young comedian from India.
Muslim comedian from India. It's the best guy. He was so great.
And he would bring us on stage every night beautifully and with such respect. And we would hug him on stage because we wanted to. And then we would step away from that. And our first line was like, look at this, Jews and Muslims hugging each other in the desert. We can do it in Phoenix. Why can't we do it in that desert over there? Let's do it in that desert over there. And we'd get laughs and applause from an audience that wasn't largely not Jewish. So what
from an audience of largely Hispanic people.
Yeah. So like from an anti-Semitic, no, from an audience of just the wonderful people. But what was beautiful about that is like, yeah, he's a person who we have the shared common thing of comedy. And we have this connection that way. And the religion part of it doesn't matter because we are people connecting.
And I truly did love this kid. He was amazing. I thought he was great. And I love that his stuff comes from a different perspective. There is a little bit of Jewish humor in, as we talk about the things we do, there are moments where, we interject and make fun of ourselves. And, there's just, we can't not do that. It's a part of who we are. And he talked about being Muslim on stage too. I just love that it came from different perspectives. It showed us and it proved to us why there needs to be a diversity of thoughts and points of view. And that makes for a better show. It makes for a better world. To have all those things
more examples of that, because I do believe we have plenty of examples of religious intolerance, and on all sides where you have people who are fighting other people over religion, people who are not wanting to kill people because of their religious views. Like we have plenty of those examples. We need some of the other examples out in the world where you can believe what you believe, I believe what I believe, we love each other, we meet each other on a different common ground, and then those things can coexist. And if the more examples of that we show to the world, the better we feel about who we are.
Actually, last month we had David Hollander, a professor from NYU, who just wrote the book, How Basketball Can Save the World. And he gave examples. It's an academic book, but he takes James Naismith's 13 Principles of Basketball and shows that the kings, not the Sacramento Kings, but kings in the world and politicians in the world and faith leaders, they couldn't do it, but this ball is literally the thing that actually has an impetus and potential to save this world.
Because you strip it all down, and
you're creating a separate goal that has nothing to do with anything. It's the game within the game of life. So if you create another goal that has nothing to do with all of your other identity goals, like you create a new identity, which is members on a team.
Yes.
And your new identity now
has nothing to do with that other stuff.
And maybe it forces you to need each other and have a teammate and have connection to that person, no matter who they are. Was in Israel? Didn't they do? Was it Seeds of Peace?
So he talks about that exactly.
So Seeds of Peace was an amazing program where Palestinians and Jews in Israel played basketball. It was basketball, wasn't it?
Yep.
And that belief, that ability to mix the teams up,
and to create something new that you both have ownership in. So we believe in that wholeheartedly. We do a podcast called Dumb People Town, which is just us looking at the craziest news stories that happen, mostly come from Florida, but where people do really stupid things.
We have friends in Florida.
Look, I don't mean to judge, but they do really stupid things. And it's just, objectively, it's not smart what happens and the decisions people make. And our point of the thing is not to be mean to those people, but we bring funny guests on, and the two of us and our co-host Dan Van Kirk, fantastic guy, not Jewish. His energy is so different from ours, and yet it all works together. We bring another person in and we create, rather than saying tell me about you and tell me about your history. And it's not an interview show. It's okay, here's a lump of clay, which is this story. Mm-hmm. And now all four of us are going to turn this into a pot, turn this into something beautiful. And the creation of that makes it, everybody leaves that podcast whenever they do it. And they're like, well, that was amazing. And I can't believe that was 50 minutes that went by like that, because we are creating something together. I do believe there's power in that.
And so to conclude, we're sitting on a pulpit, and so you get to give a rabbinic message or a prophetic message. What is that perhaps funny, comedic story in sports that we should be looking for, both maybe through the playoffs and maybe this upcoming baseball season, but not just funny, but can give us some depth in terms of why sports can be important over the next few months or so?
So, I mean, do you want to share a story from our lives?
I can share a story. When I was in New York, and when we were living in New York, my wife took me to a Knicks game.
Nick's still in it.
Nick's
still in it. I mean, can we just say that, like,
Stephen A. Smith is a happy man right now?
He is. I'm telling you. Come on,
come on, Skip.
I'm talking to Julius Randle on a go-to meeting. No, but the fact that the Knicks are good, the fact that Madison Square Garden is just buzzing and full and crazy. There's nothing better. So I'm at Madison Square Garden. This is so fun. And I experienced the full range of what it is to be on the court of Madison Square Garden. So I'm sitting in my seat way up at the top.
You weren't even in your seat.
I was in my seat. We sat like a row down because it was just empty. And I don't know why, like one row made a difference at the top. It didn't, but there were like more open seats around us. And someone from a clipboard from the Knicks organization came around.
I was walking up and counting the seats and then points to Randy.
Cuts to the seat that I'm not supposed to be in and says, would you like to participate in something on the court? This is before we had any knowledge. People knew who we were or anything. I was just with our show hadn't even been out yet.
No, I don't think it was 96, 95.
And my wife was like, or at the time, my girlfriend, she was like, yeah, you should go do it. So I go down and they want me to do this thing where I have to shoot 3 free throws worth 1 point apiece, 2 college 3-pointers worth 2 points apiece, and 2 NBA 3-pointers worth 3 points apiece. If I accumulate 7 points, I can shoot a half-court shot and I would win $77,777.77.
By the way, they're asking you to do too many things.
And it's on a clock. Like, you got to do it in a time frame. So I'm just saying to myself, do not shoot an air ball for the free throws. Do not. And like the glass backboard with people behind it makes it seem like it's so much closer.
You like look to your left and there's Kevin Bacon. Right, Spike Lee.
Woody Allen. I mean, there's all these people there at this. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to sink these shots. So the first shot I shoot up and I'm just like, please don't airball it. Front of the rim, backboard, and in. People start to clap. Second shot, swish, nothing but net. Now the Garden they're like focused and they're watching me. Third shot, front of the rim, backboard, and in. The Garden is
out of the gates.
3 points down, and everybody's up and everybody's cheering. They're like, oh my God, this guy's going to make it. The next 4 shots I missed, and I break all of them. And I get booed by the Garden. I get booed. Literally, from the highest heights. I'm like, this is what it's like to play in New York. This is what it's like to be a New York sports fan. But someone was taking a picture. This is like the best thing ever.
Someone photographer from the
Knicks is taking a picture
as you're shooting.
As I'm shooting the free throws. I'm like, this is going to be a picture of me shooting a free throw at the Garden. I'm going to blow this up. I'm going to have this forever. I'll have this as a memento of me doing this thing. So a few months later, I get a thing in the mail from the Knicks. No address, nothing to talk to. I open up the thing and I could tell there's a photograph and I'm so excited. I open it up and it's a picture of someone else shooting.
Oh, no.
So what is this story about, if I can extrapolate?
Go.
The story is about you now have this life experience and a story that you can share forever. It definitely didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. You didn't walk off in a blaze of glory, but sometimes in our failures come comedy.
Yes.
Comedy equals tragedy plus time. We've always said that. And comedy also is a way to resurrect what seems like a sad experience and turn it into something positive.
It's our weapon.
It's our weaponry against our own, at times, distraught sadness. And I think we can use that, dig into our own insecurities, our own foibles, our own mistakes, and find something humorous. And now he has, instead of a photo that's blown up on the wall of some other random dude,
I have a story that to me is way funnier.
and a memory that means something forever. So as we go into this sports playoffs, as we go, people still rooting for their teams, maybe your team won't win and it'll be devastating and sad, but hopefully within all that comes a story and some comedy that you can mine from your experiences.
So I'm going to conclude with the words of Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. Mitzvah gedola liyot besimcha tamid. It is a mitzvah, it is a commandment to always find joy, always. In everything.
Agreed.
Sklar Brothers and Rabbi on the Sidelines here at Sinai Temple. You can find them everywhere and truly bringing joy to all of us. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time.